What's up, sons? It's your favorite time of the week. It's Mining Rig Wars, and today we're going to be talking about some mining rigs from users just like you who have submitted, which if you want to submit, you can check out in the description below. The winner of Series 3 for Mining Rig Wars was Aurus Extremist, so congratulations. I'll be sending you an email to receive some free Bitcoin. That's always nice, and you have the potential to win as well if you submit down below. And if you haven't seen last week's episode for the finals, you can check it out up here. Without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back. So the first rig is going to be Rig A. If you want to vote, be sure to click the little exclamation point up in the top corner and click your favorite rig to vote. This rig is called Vigor, I don't know, by Boot to Thrill, and he is featuring 8GB RX 460s, 4GB. That's pretty neat. I haven't seen some 460s in a rig in a while. And it has the Corsair Platinum HX1000 power supply with an Asus Z270A motherboard and the G3900 proc. He's got the Hyper 212 heatsink for that proc and two Thermaltake Ring 12 series red LED fans. The total hash rate is 107 megahash a second. Moving on to Rig B, it's the Nebulator by Nebula, and he is featuring the Pentium 3.3 gigahertz. I'm assuming we're talking about a G4400 or G3930, something along those lines. The Kingston HyperX Fury Black 8GB of memory with the Asus ROG Strix RX 470 8GB edition and the Tacens Mars Gaming MPII 650 watt power supply, as well as the Asus H110 motherboard. He's rocking 23 megahash a second, and you can get more with a BIOS flash, so go check out my BIOS flash video to get more info on that Nebula. Next we have Rig C, which is going to be the Crypto Closet. This thing is intense, so bear with me as we go through it. He's got how many? Oh, got 1, 2, 3, 4 rigs listed here, and it's just a massive closet with crazy ducting work going through there to keep everything cool, which is pretty intense. He's got the BioStar TB250 motherboard on the first rig with 12 Zotac GTX 1070 minis, a 1000 watt EVGA titanium, and a 1000 watt Seasonic titanium, and 8GB of RAM. The second rig has an ASRock H110 Pro BTC motherboard with 13 EVGA GTX 1066GB, two 850 watt Seasonic titanium power supplies, and again 8GB of memory. The third one has the Asus Prime Z270A with 8 RX 580s, two EVGA 1200 watt power supplies, and 8GB of RAM. And the final rig has the MSI Z170A with 6 GTX 1070 Founders Editions, Founders Editions, Frontier Edition. He said FE, I keep getting those mixed up. A Corsair AXI 1200 watt power supply and 2 sticks of 4GB RAM. So the total hash rate isn't listed here. Obviously, the total hash rate is going to be ridiculous on this one. So, by the way, the user is Mining Made Easy, and sometimes you look at things and you're like, I want. That's all I had to say about that one. Rig D is going to be ROG Mining, and this is by Restricted. He clarified, of course, that that is his synonym. And he's rocking 14 Asus ROG Strix GTX 1080 Ti's with the ASRock Pro BTC motherboard. Only 8 GPUs work with Windows, and he didn't want to use another OS, so he had to put one more motherboard in, he clarifies, and added some more power supplies. I think this has changed. We might want to review the support for that as well now. Maybe you just have an extra motherboard to expand to. He has 3 3 EVGA 1600 watt power supplies and a single EVGA 1300 watt power supply, and a single Corsair AX 1200 watt power supply. He's rocking the Corsair airflow fans, so those are all the fans on the front. I really like those fans, so that was a good choice there. And he has an SSD for each system, and he says he's using an Ambi climate device to maintain room temp and humidity, stable at 23 degrees ambient temperature. All cards are overclocked to 120%, 280 watts each, average 55 to 61 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty impressive. 2 AC units running in there. And he's got some Wemo spark plugs. Good idea there. If you guys haven't checked my video out on using smart plugs to remotely reboot your stalled systems, you can check that out up here in the corner as well. He has a total hash rate of 10,500 sols. Moving on to the final competitor for this week, we have Rig E, which is ETH Ninja by Aquarium Samurai. Pretty intense there. He's rocking the Intel Pentium G4400 processor with the Asus Strix B250H motherboard, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 6 GTX 1060s, 1000 watt EVGA power supply, and a homemade frame. The frame looks very well built, actually. That's pretty impressive. A whole bunch of metal brackets, it looks like, so I'm digging that. Yeah, so made out of 3/4 inch aluminum angle with 3 120 millimeter fans. The total hash rate is 131 mega hash a second. So let's go back through these and review them. Rig A is going to be V'ger by Boot to Thrill. The frame is very clean, digging it. I think all of the parts choices are fantastic. I don't think you should have put a Hyper 212 on there. That's 30 bucks that was just kind of wasted. Save that for your gaming PC or something and just use the stock Intel cooler. You don't need that much cooling power for a G3900 that's just sitting there basically doing nothing. So that's my opinion on that. The Nebulator, I'm not sure. Like, it looks super cool to have the GPU sitting on top there like that, and I think that bracket's meant for expansion though. So let us know. I'm not sure exactly what your plans are for the future, but knowing the plans for the future would be cool for everybody voting. It's laid out real well. It does look like that, obviously, that motherboard needs an upgrade to expand much further. So you're gonna need to be looking at a motherboard upgrade here in the future. And too much RAM. 8 gigabytes of RAM on a M micro ATX motherboard? Why? Because you could have, and maybe you already had the motherboard. So the only thing I can think here is you could have saved the 60 bucks on 4 gigabytes of memory and it upgraded the motherboard to something that can hold more GPUs for the future. Moving on to Crypto Closet. I mean, there's not much I can say here other than go check out his YouTube. I'll leave a link to it in the description below. He linked a lot of videos. Tons of good information here if you guys are looking for rigs, so totally worth the shout out. Mining made easy and just pretty much a mix of everything you could want. I mean, he's got some 1060s in there. I do want to know if those 1060s, out of the 13 you got, how many of them ended up with Samsung and how many of them ended up with Micron, because that would be interesting to know. Like, I always like the lottery split with that. Like, I've ordered 6 1063 gigs, for example, and out of the 6, I only got 1 with Samsung. So playing that lottery is always fun. I like the videos where people go out and buy a whole bunch of GPUs, like 1060s usually, because those are the ones, 1060s are the biggest gamble right now for mining rigs, because you either end up with Samsung and you got away with getting a pretty cheap, decent priced card that does really well at mining, or you end up with a Micron that's meh, it's okay at mining. So I always like that gamble, it's fun. Rig D, I mean, look, 1080 Ti's, I'm always jealous of 1080 Ti's. Those are just gonna have the best overall longevity. Whenever you start talking about picking a card for mining, if you pick the 1080 Ti, you are pretty much good on every algo. It doesn't do, well, I take that back. It does do like some algos really, really good, like Lyra 2 Rev 2 for Vert. But if Vert was to take a crap, you're still gonna be solid. You can move to ETH just fine. You can move to Equihash just fine. I mean, there's not anything the 1080 Ti doesn't do at least decently enough to make you a profit. Only thing hard about them is they do require that extra power PCI power pin. And then finally, ETH Ninja. This is a perfect example of a starter build. Everything from the frame construction, which you kept cheap by doing the angle brackets and building yourself, to the layout of the fans and the motherboard and the GPUs. There's not much you could have gone wrong here with. Once again, out of those 6 1060s, how many of them are Samsung and how many of them are Micron? And I've noticed this as well with the 1060s. If you have the Micron, I can't overclock near as much. I get about 500 megahertz on the memory. And on the Samsung, I can pull 750. And that's almost every single time I get one of those. So I'm curious also overclocking for you on that as well. That's gonna wrap up everything. Be sure to make sure you vote for your favorite rig up here in the corner. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share with all your friends so they can submit and you can see everybody's rigs eventually as we get to them. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget we have a Discord you can come join and talk to the community, talk mining, talk cloud mining, talk masternodes, and just get better at your craft here. And we also have, of course, coins.sonofatech.com with a list of current pools with low to no fees depending on how the front ends work. And I will see you next Tuesday.